All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to unpack the worldview of a pretty controversial online figure. He's a man who has built a massive following, teaching a very specific code of masculinity for the modern age. So yeah, let's just dive right in.
And that quote right there, that's your gateway into the provocative teachings of YouTuber Ivan Barca. His followers know him as El Hermano Mayor, which means the big brother. This is really the entry point to a whole philosophy that wants to flip the script on attraction and masculinity.
So where does all this start? Well, for Barca, his philosophy kicks off with what he sees as a modern crisis. He basically argues that a lot of men today are depressed, and they're unsuccessful with women because society has trained them to be weak, predictable, and frankly, boring. And he's got a label for this kind of man: a beta. Barca's entire worldview is built on this core split. He says that while society is always promoting the chico bueno, the good guy, women are actually instinctively drawn to the chico mala, the bad boy. And his reasoning for this? He says the bad boy projects survival value and dominance, and that this is what taps into what he calls a woman's primitive brain.
Okay, so if being a beta is the problem, what's the fix? Well, Barca offers a whole system that he calls El Juego, which translates to the game.
He describes juego as a necessary adaptation. Why? Because in his view, female psychology just hasn't evolved with modern society. He says it still responds to these ancient, primal cues of power and status, not our contemporary ideas about being nice or equal. It's all about learning to speak that older, unspoken language.
And this whole worldview really hangs on these two core archetypes. Now, here's the crucial point. The exact same action, let's say buying a gift, gets judged in two completely different ways. From this perspective, when an alpha does it, it's a high-value gesture. But when a beta does it, it's seen as a low-value, weak attempt to just buy her affection.
This all ties into a central concept he calls hypergamia. The core belief here is that a woman is only ever attracted to a man she sees as being of a higher value than she is. According to Barca, a woman will never be with a perdedor, a loser. So a man's primary job is to constantly project this higher value. Your validation has to become a scarce, hard-to-win resource.
Right, so how do you actually do that? How do you demonstrate this value and this mental strength in the real world? Well, the first tactical hurdle you have to pass in Barca's system is something he calls the shit test.
Now, Barca doesn't see these as genuine questions or attacks. He views them as subconscious tests of your dominance. And passing them is absolutely crucial. It's how you prove you have a strong, unshakable marco mentale, a mental frame. It's all about showing you can't be easily controlled or knocked off balance.
And here you can see the playbook in action. You'll notice none of these are logical, defensive answers. Instead, it's all about what Barca calls arrogant humor, exaggeration, and just misdirection. Each response deflects the question's premise and reframes the interaction so that you maintain control.
But these tests, they're really just one piece of a much larger strategic playbook. A playbook that's designed to systematically engineer attraction and ultimately desire.
This quote gets right to the heart of the tactical approach. He's redefining what most of us would call manipulation into just effective, calculated communication. From his perspective, a woman wearing lingerie is also a form of manipulation. So a man using strategy, he's just playing the same game.
A really key tactic here is replacing the traditional cita or date with what he calls the encuentro, the encounter. He sees a planned date as a low-value transaction where the guy is basically auditioning. The encounter, on the other hand, is spontaneous, it's high value, and it happens completely on the man's terms.
And the encounter follows this very strict set of rules. It's immediate, it's objective-focused, and it firmly establishes the man's dominant frame from the very start. The whole interaction is designed to position him as the prize.
So, why are all these tactics supposed to be effective? Well, this worldview says that women are fundamentally repelled by predictability and comfort. Instead, they're drawn to ambiguity, to challenge, and to strong emotions. Yep, even negative ones. The philosophy claims that these types of love listed here, they all signal a low-value, undesirable man.
And this leads us to the ultimate, and maybe the most controversial, objective of the entire philosophy. It's not about finding a partner or building a relationship, at least not in the traditional sense.
Barca is very, very clear on this.
The endgame is not to build an equal partnership. The aim is to achieve a position of such emotional power that the woman becomes completely invested to the point of what he calls obsession.
And this final quote, it really sums up the whole endgame. The focus is completely and unapologetically self-centric. Mastery of the game itself becomes the primary reward. It's an end in and of itself, totally detached from the outcome with any one person.
Ultimately, understanding the ideas of El Hermano Mayor isn't just about one influencer. It raises a much broader question for all of us. What does the growing appeal of philosophies like this one really tell us about the anxieties, the desires, and the changing rules in the whole landscape of modern relationships today?